Bedlam on the Diamonds looking better as the Sooners losing a series. TCU might lose out on a couple legacies. Oklahoma State gets a blue chip over Clemson, and Mike Gundy's house is on the market. This solar eclipse has the whole world going absolutely mad.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at AllDayOState. Today, we're partially brought to you by LinkedIn. You know today's hiring is a complete wager. Do not gamble with your small business. Make sure that you hire the right people faster and for free. Post your job for free today at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. There are terms and conditions in regards to the news of Mike Gundy's house being on the market. That is what caused the biggest stir in Cowboy country for the most part over the weekend. And yes, it is true. Mike Gundy's house is in fact on the market, but I'm hearing it's just a little downsizing. All right. All the kids are off the way, either to college or out of the house. Therefore, they just don't need all of the rooms. They don't need all of the space. They will still need a nice, cozy mansion to entertain players and things of that nature. But if you have ever wanted to own a piece of Mike Gundy's history, you can own his house today. And it has nothing to do with Mike Gundy leaving Oklahoma State University. This is far from it, actually. I think this is a move in the right direction to showcase the fact that he's 100% focused on Cowboy football now that his kids have kind of grown their own wings and learned to move on and move out, even if they are still in Stillwater. On the other hand, we did notice that there was a decent amount of Cowboys that have been able to watch practice, and this is guys that are looking to become Cowboys or get recruited or get offers or some that were already receiving offers from Oklahoma State. And then we also had some of the previous class that aren't part of the early enrollees that were there, like Jonathan Agumidu and our main man, Gunnar Wilson. Whenever you look at the guys that are rocking and rolling around Oklahoma State, it is good to see that we're expanding our profile and the guys that we can get with the news of offensive tackle choosing Oklahoma State over Clemson, Florida State, a bunch of SEC schools. We're going to give Jalen his own show at a later date. But today, we're going to talk about some of the guys that were on hand. And the most important being, to me, the fact that Adam Schobel was on hand. We have discussed Adam Schobel before. We've also discussed his legacy with TCU, right? His dad being a tight end with TCU that also played for a couple different teams for several years in the NFL. He committed to Baylor. He's been a Baylor commit for a little while now. TCU fans were up in arms about losing out on the 6'4", 200-pound quarterback prospect because he's a legacy. His dad is a TCU Horned Frog. His uncle is a TCU Horned Frog. But this is where this gets better for Oklahoma State. Would getting Adam Schobel be huge? Absolutely. But getting his cousin, John Schobel, to me, is even bigger. John Schobel is a 6'4", 225-pound defensive end. His film is all at linebacker and tight end. And I will admit, some of the stuff he does at tight end is pretty impressive. Therefore, he's going to be able to play both sides of the ball or pick which side of the ball he wants to play at the collegiate level. From what I've gathered, I don't think this is necessarily a package deal, but this is somewhat reminiscent of the Tabor Shetron situation, except for John is certified. We all know Adam put up 2,800 yards and 36 touchdowns as a junior. He followed that up with another over 2,400 yards, I think 2,405 yards, another 30 touchdowns this previous season. Well, his cousin John, likewise, had 200 tackles last season and then jumped in with another 195 this previous season. That means that TCU could lose out on both. Now, it's not like, Baylor's going to surefire get either of them. Yes, he's currently committed to Baylor, but there's some interest in Oklahoma State. There has been for a little while now. And Baylor's had a decent amount of shakeup in their staff. They've had some changeover. They've had some stuff not exactly go their way. They weren't overly aggressive in the transfer portal. People aren't 100% sold on if Dave Aranda is going to be the answer at Baylor. So there's a lot of uncertainty in Waco, which is the exact opposite issue you have in Stillwater. If you're looking for the foundation, Oklahoma State has that. Oklahoma State has the continuity and the coaching staff that not very many places in the country have. This shouldn't necessarily be a package deal, but they're both 2025 class. And just like getting Adam would be great, Aaron's son, Josh, I think is the bigger get here. Primarily because we're set at quarterback. It appears as though we're set at quarterback for quite some time. Whether Zane Flores is going to play a little bit of running back and quarterback this year should be fun to see. The future of development at the quarterback position should be fun to see. I don't think there's any apprehension on the development already for Mayolake Smith. We know what Garrett Rangel's been able to do from a size perspective, right? Adding meat and taters to the frame. So from a quarterback position, I think we're okay. But again, we'll take Adam Schobel. There is interest, and the interest definitely goes both ways because this is not Adam's first interaction in Stillwater. We need to get both of them to Stillwater. That would be massive. Adam's a big get. But ladies and gentlemen, his cousin is set to debut a defensive end this season, and it's going to be absolutely maddening. I mean, the athleticism, the quickness, the feet, the sinking of the hips, the visibility to read the backfield, it's already impressive. What would be more impressive is if we can turn these TCU horny-toed family members to rocking the orange and black together. So yes, Mike Gundy's house is on the market, but obtaining the services of the Schobel family, that's also on the market. And you got to jump in while the getting is good. The uncertainty at Baylor cannot be great. The certainty in Stillwater, that's got to be something that gives the Schobel family a lot of ease of mind. Plus the development. You're getting guys that already have NFL frames with two NFL dads that both played for 7-8 years in the NFL, if not longer. So you know that if you get somebody like that to rob Glass, the possibilities are endless. The game of football, they already understand. The physical nature in which you need to work at to become the best, they already get that. They've already had that. We know what Rob Glass could do, unlock a completely new level. And if you want to see Tatum Evans and Gunnar Wilson doing the thing together, Jonathan Agumidu and the Schobel family, they can do it together. Because that's what Oklahoma State is about. It's about family. It's about continuity. It's about the understanding that you're never going to deviate too far from accomplishments at Oklahoma State because we set the bar a certain level. Just like you should set your bar at a certain level when it comes to hiring. Nowadays, it is crazy out there. The hiring market is wild. People's apprehension to get into jobs, it seems to be growing. So don't mess with the crazy stuff. Get LinkedIn. It's not your run-of-the-mill typical job board. They've got a vast network of over 1 billion professionals, which makes it the easiest place for you to hire. It gives you access to professionals that you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all of this while making the process super easy and intuitive for you. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate in the first 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many different layers of responsibilities that they might not have the same time or resources that they had previously to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways for you to make the hiring process easier. They've even launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process quicker as well. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for their hiring needs. You should do the same. Post your job for free today at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Again, that is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free today. Terms and conditions do apply. What I'm hoping to make applicable is the Bedlam baseball emergence. Ironically enough, the ace, Brian Holliday, of the staff was the one who got banged up the most, but that's okay. One thing that was very evident between Oklahoma State and OU when it came to baseball is they hit better, but they don't have the staff that we have, which is, again, another instance where if Rob Walton holds his cards correctly and distributes them out properly, Oklahoma State has the ability to make a run. Oklahoma State has the ability to host a regional and win a regional. You all know the expectation should always be host a super, which means you have to win a regional to host anything. Now, hosting may be pretty difficult this year, but we just cracked back into the top 25 after taking 2 of 3 from OU. And the game that they did beat us was a game against our ace, Brian Holliday, where the wind's blowing 40, 50 miles an hour, when all you had to do was flick your wrist, get the ball up into the jet stream, and it was leaving the yard, which is why there was 10 home runs hit on that day. Now, I feel that because as a pitcher and somebody who develops pitching, those days are rough. Whenever you have a traditional arm-slotted guy, whether he's a fastball guy or slider guy, if you leave anything hanging in the zone whatsoever, it doesn't take much for that ball to get to moving. That's the experience we had in one of the 3 games of Bedlam. What did we see the other 2 games of the Bedlam? We saw a big brother bully beatdown. That's what it was. Zach Earhart continues to stay hot. He might be the best outfielder in the Big 12. Whenever you look at the pitching staff, yes, outside of Holliday, right? Kranz looks like a bad mamma jamma, the transfer from Wichita State. We do know that we've got some youth, right? We've got some youth in the dugout, and then we've got somebody like Garrett Benj that could come in and close the door after playing in the field, after hitting home runs, after laying out for balls in the outfield. Having back-to-back visibility of what Nolan McClain was as a baseball player, and now Carson Benj as a baseball player, is like 2 peas in a pod. So from an Oklahoma State baseball perspective, we do get spoiled quite often with talent. We get guys that are destined to play in the major leagues. I mean, heck, OU wanted no part of pitching to Nolan Schubert, nor should they. The dude drops bombs. Colin Brugman, he may lead in some strikeout categories, but he can also drop bombs. When you have freshmen back-to-back-to-back in the lineup, and those back-to-back-to-back freshmen give you a base runner, then take the lead, then help kind of seal the deal, that shows that Oklahoma State baseball has enough. When you mix the veteran leadership of someone like a Tyler Wolfert, you could throw Aiden Miola in there as well, with some of the youth, some of the exuberance that you're seeing out of some of these guys. I think the world is the oyster for Mr. Garcia on the mound. I think that obviously Gabe Davis has the ability. I think Brennan Phillips, he just needs to find it again. He's in a little bit of a slump, but he was still the most heralded pitcher coming out of Owasso in a long time for a reason. So he's a lefty that we need to get going. We need to get some confidence back in him. But if he can find that, we're going to be okay. My biggest issue, once again, is not with the staff. It's with the management of the staff. Now, we've proven we have enough guys that if Rob Walton does decide to do the righty-lefty matchup, strategically, he can do that. We've proven we have enough middle relievers that there's going to be competition before Big 12 tournament play, before regionals, to carve out another notch in the belt. Because the Friday guy and the Sunday guy, those could still change. We've still got pitchers that are performing good enough to keep themselves at the forefront of any conversations of having an additional starter. And basically, your main Tuesday guy is just the guy that's close to being a Friday, Sunday guy, but not quite. The Saturday guy's still going to be Brian Holliday, as it should be. He didn't necessarily have a bad game. In a normal game where the wind's not blowing 47 miles an hour, he probably doesn't have the same issues. But he's a guy that's going to throw some power. He's going to have some off speed. But the problem with having his kind of off speed is he does leave stuff hanging. Sometimes an off speed high in the zone can trick the batter just enough for it to work. More often than not, it wasn't purposeful for that pitch to be up there, especially if it's a breaking ball. If you're trying to bang a 4-seam, 2-seam high on somebody, that's fine. But you can't really bang a 12-6 on somebody very high, especially in a windy day. Probably not going to work out well for you. And that's precisely what we saw. Again, the hitting. I like that we're able to throw some guys in the game, like later in the games, that whether they be just a DH role or a freshman or a redshirt freshman, we're putting young cats in situations late in games to do something, and they're doing it, right? That's probably the biggest ordeal out of this entire conversation is it's one thing to have the people. It's another thing to pull it off. We've got the people. This could be a season where we sneak our way into a championship because the Big 12 is wide open. Now, what sweeping them would have done was catapult us into sole possession of second place. What instead it has done is made a hodgepodge of like a 5-way tie for second place right now in the Big 12. And then you've got West Virginia and OU tied at first. But we just saw what OU is. They're a team with very hot bats. They can swing, whether it's windy or not. OU can swing the sticks. They just don't have a pitching staff. They were issuing walks over and over. I mean, I almost felt bad for their pitching coach because they couldn't find the right formula. They couldn't find the right middle relievers just to bridge a little bit of a gap to get them to a closer or to get them to an extra setup man. OU had a hard time with extra bases, giving us free baseball. That's not smart when you have some guys in the lineup that can tattoo the ball. I will say offensively, OU's are going to be a problem. If you're a team that doesn't have a deep pitching staff, OU's going to give you fits. There's a reason they were first place. Now we know why. It's because they swing the bats better than almost anybody else in the Big 12. West Virginia is a gritty baseball club. We were talking about West Virginia kind of up and coming a few years ago. I really like their coach. And I had a soft spot for them whenever that tornado hit in Oklahoma some years back, and West Virginia happened to be traveling through Stillwater. They showed up an extra day early or something to that effect, and they went to Oklahoma City, and their baseball team drove around helping people. So I've always had a soft spot for West Virginia baseball ever since, so I've kept a close eye, but they're a pretty good ball club. I don't think that West Virginia nor OU are going to finish the season atop the Big 12 leaderboard. But we didn't think Cincinnati could sweep TCU ever, and that happened. We didn't think UCF was such a good ball club that they were going to steal series from some of your heavy-hitting Big 12 contenders, but that's happening. It's a wild ride right now for Big 12 baseball. And it could be a wild ride for softball because the Cowgirls continue to do some winning, taking another series. But the big surprise is not Oklahoma State winning a series. We expect that to happen, regardless of the opponent, more often than not. The only opponent that you can say Oklahoma State should lose this series is to OU. Yet OU just lost 2 in a row to Texas. So OU looked somewhat susceptible when they fell early in the season to Louisiana, the Lady Ragin' Cajuns. But since then, they responded really well until this series. Now, Texas is good. Texas has been a top 5, top 3 style ranked team pretty much all year. But we proved we were better than Texas in a series. And Texas just beat OU in a series. Again, we all know that Oklahoma State and Texas could beat OU in a game, which is how we won a Big 12 title 2 years ago. it's beating them 2 out of 3 times that nobody could really do. Well, now Texas has done that. The same Texas club that got beat by our Cowgirls. And realistically, that was a very, very close matchup. But we look like the better team. Defensively, we look better. Offensively, we look better. Pitching staff, we look deeper. So does this mean that OU is finally gettable? Well, it appears as though that's the case. And like it always was supposed to be and always should have been for football, it's the last game of the year. So all eyes in the Big 12 and the country, to some degree, will be on Stillwater, Oklahoma, as the Sooners come in what now has become a legitimate Big 12 title race. I mean, you got to give your hats off to Texas. It's not very often that we say thank you, Texas, but this is one of those opportunities because now that Texas has proven OU to be susceptible, there's a legitimate opportunity for somebody not named OU to win the Big 12 regular season. Now, we've discussed beating them one time. Both Oklahoma State and Texas are good enough to beat OU in a game for a Big 12 title. We've done that. The issue was always going to be winning 2 of 3. And Texas just did that. So Texas, thank you. You've somehow offered hope to maybe not everybody in the country, because not everybody in the country is good enough to beat OU. There's not very many teams in the country good enough to beat OU. But a couple of them just so happen to reside in the Big 12 currently. How sweet would it be for this to be the year? Because everybody knows when OU and Texas is gone, we become the OU of Big 12 softball. Point blank, period, no questions asked. That's just what it is. But the question always was, could Oklahoma State get another one with OU still in the conference? Unlikely, especially given Kelly Maxwell, the Oklahoma State ace, left for OU. Tell me that wouldn't be the sweetest send-off, even sweeter than football, is to beat OU in a series to end the season with Kelly Maxwell on the bump. I guess it's not a bump in softball. In the circle. There you go. This is not your traditional buildup of Bedlam. Traditionally speaking, there's always a battle for second place, typically OSU and Texas. And OU is so far ahead of the conference that winning a regular season softball title is not a realistic possibility. We both prepared for that one title game in the Big 12 tournament. But now that Texas has done this, and you can peek back a little bit to see what Louisiana did, a Big 12 regular season championship is obtainable in the sport of softball for somebody not named OU. Now, I don't want Texas to win the Big 12 at all, just as much, how do I word it? Just as much as I wouldn't want to see OU win it. But this is shaping up to maybe be the right time. OU clearly is not the juggernaut that they've been in the past. They're still probably the best team in the country, not to disrespect Duke. But this is another opportunity for Kenny Gajewski to plant his I need my daggone stadium flag in the ground. Because if he does beat OU 2 out of 3, he wins a Big 12 regular season title with OU and Texas still in the conference, and then wins a Big 12 tournament title with OU and Texas still in the conference, either one of those is huge. But the possibility of doing both, winning a regular season and a postseason Big 12 title, has never even been a conversation at all, especially this late into the season. But here we are. Texas, thank you for propping the door open. Now we've got to do our job and take it. Just like football players keep saying, we have to go take the Big 12 title this year. Nobody's going to give it to us. Nobody's going to allow us to roll into Arlington and walk away with the title. We keep going but we don't go home with the hardware. That's the same concept of capitalization for Gundy. We get to the top of the mountaintop over and over and over and over. We don't know what the other side of the mountain looks like from a football perspective. Softball, we have seen the other side of that mountain once. It was beautiful. It was glorious, but it gave us a taste. It gave us a taste for another Big 12 title. And now it's even more possible than ever. Instead of just competing and hoping and waiting and wondering for the shot at the Big 12 tournament title, the regular season title is now in play, thanks to, of all teams, Texas. So thank you, Texas. And thank you ahead of time, Kenny Gasky, if you do, in fact, get this series clinching W at the end of the season from OU. Yeah, it might be time. It might be time to rob from somebody, some Peter, to pay some Paul. As long as Paul's building a new softball stadium, we'll figure it out. All righty, y'all. That's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, you know I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere, so happy you choose to be here. Go hit the like button, dislike it if you don't like it. That's okay too. Most importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. If you're already a part of the posse for the giveaways, make sure you recruit your people to subscribe, get in on the action so they can too win opportunities to get tickets, meet and greets, autograph, players, jerseys, the whole 9 yards. All right, y'all. You know the drill. My podcasting people out there, you're the bricks. You're the foundation, the bread, the butter. Make sure y'all get in on the ticket giveaway, autograph, meet and greet stuff too. All right, y'all. Hit me up on the socials. Later, taters.